Hey parents! Today I want to debunk with you some common myths, some common misconceptions surrounding childbirth that I often come across on social media. And these ideas are based on naivety and often just on false information. And I really want now to set the record straight and to provide you with accurate information on 5 recurring birth topics that need some clarity. I am Kate Rocks, a doula, a Lama's childbirth educator and the mother of 2 fantastic daughters. I have created the Own Your Birth online childbirth education program to help you make truly informed and conscious decisions about your birth journey. And why is it so important to be informed and conscious about your birth decisions? Well, simply to allow you to turn this experience into the most treasured memory of your life when you are in the center, when your baby is in the center, and when you are shaping it instead of just surviving it as it happens to you. And you can find various course bundles on my website, which is the www.ownyourbirth.com. And while you are there, then please make sure to subscribe to my free childbirth workshop. This is approximately 40 minutes long, and on this workshop I share with you super practical, easy to implement tips to make your birth smoother and more enjoyable. Alright, let's now bust those myths together. Well, one common misconception, especially believed by fathers-to-be, is the idea of excessive bleeding during labor. Well, let me tell you that this is quite far from the truth. Because during the first stage of labor, so during the dilation stage, there is actually hardly any blood. And you may experience a few drops, typically at the onset of labor. This is what is also known as the blood issue, when the mucus plug is released. So it is at the onset of labor or shortly before that, but it's really just a small amount, so just a few drops. And don't worry, this is perfectly normal and it is usually fresh blood, so it appears red or pink. And then, as labor progresses, you might notice thick, really elastic mucus discharge, which can also contain a few drops of blood. But again, we are speaking about a few drops. However, if you experience serious bleeding, it can be continuous or intermittent, similar to menstrual bleeding, or maybe even more than that. Well, this is cause of concern and that requires immediate medical attention, as this may indicate serious complications. And this is true also during labor or at any time during the last trimester. However, when the baby emerges, then the baby's body may be a little bit bloody, especially if there was a perineal tearing or an episiotomy became necessary. But the real bleeding, so the serious bleeding, that really occurs after the birth of the placenta. And for a vaginal birth, the quantity may reach up to approximately a quarter, which is considered perfectly normal. But again, this bleeding comes once the placenta is born. Okay, let us see the second birth myth. Another misconception is that labor should start with the rupture of the membranes. And thanks to TV and media portrayals, some parents believe that the artificial rupture of membranes, that it's a standard procedure upon hospital admission because their labor hasn't begun normally. However, in reality, only about 15% of labors begin with a spontaneous rupture. And much more often, labor starts with contractions and the membranes are then released at the very end of labor, or sometimes even during the pushing stage, and even in some cases babies are even born within the amniotic sac, and this is what we call the uncle birth, and those are really amazingly beautiful births. So in most of the cases, labor does not begin with the rupture of the membranes, and intact membranes during labor, they actually even offer many benefits because the risk of infections are reduced both for the baby and for the mom, as long as the membranes are intact. And also it is more easy for the baby to move, to navigate through your pelvis within the amniotic fluid. And this water also acts as a kind of cushion, and it spreads the pressure around the baby and around the placenta, and this ensures a better blood circulation. But unfortunately, the truth is that in many hospitals worldwide, the rupture of the membranes is often one of the first steps upon admission. And why is that? Well, it is either part of the birth induction process if labor has been medically induced, or providers also often believe that this act speeds up labor by intensifying the contractions. However, this impact has not been confirmed by the latest research in case of a spontaneous birth. So in case if the birth was not artificially induced. Now, the third birth myth is really a doozy one. Because some parents believe that labor is harmful to the baby and they may opt for a surgical birth because of these misconceptions. So with the idea of protecting the baby from the harms of labor. Well, let me set the record straight here. Labor is not just not bad for the baby, but it is actually a very important step for the baby's preparation for the life outside your body. Because during labor, the baby benefits from the various hormones your body will produce during labor. So cortisol, for example, it prepares the lungs for the breathing, while the hormone called adrenaline, which is present during the pushing stage, it makes the baby will be alert to search for your nipples once he or she will be born. And then another hormone, oxytocin, this helps with the bonding both for you and for your baby as well. And on top of that, also contractions play a vital role in the baby's adaptation process. Because a temporary drop in oxygen levels during the contractions, so then there is a little bit less of oxygen, that creates a positive stress for the baby. And this is what we call the eustress, and that eustress triggers the mobilization of the baby's energy reserves, and that increases the metabolism to regulate later on the body temperature and to make sure the blood sugar is available and the blood sugar levels are stabilized once the baby will be disconnected from your body. Then the fourth birth myth is that cesarean birth is less painful than vaginal birth. Well, this is a common misconception among some expectant parents, and they may think that a cesarean birth is less painful than vaginal birth. However, let me tell you from experience of many mothers that this is very far from reality. Because for most women, the most challenging part of giving birth is actually the first stage, so the dilation stage. And if a cesarean becomes necessary when dilation is almost complete, then the pain of labor remains along with the pain of the surgery itself. However, it is true that if it was an elective cesarean, so if the parents opted or the doctors in consultation, they opted for the cesarean, that might eliminate the pain associated with labor. But please do not forget that cesarean that involves an abdominal surgery. So this is not just cutting a finger. And the procedure itself, that's true that it might be totally painless due to the anesthesia, but you may still feel a kind of pulling, stretching, and it's really a strange sensation if you are not fully anesthetized. And regardless of the type of the anesthesia, there is of course the feeling of vulnerability too. And then after the surgery, the first hours, the days after a cesarean, this is not a walk in the park either. And the pain sensation is significant, and mothers may find it challenging to perform simple tasks like for example lifting a glass of water, let alone caring for a baby. And even coughing, laughing, or sneezing, that might remain painful even for several weeks. So if you are considering an elective cesarean to avoid the pain of childbirth, then I would rather recommend you learning efficient pain management techniques, coping techniques, and ensure that your partner is also familiar with those, so that you both are prepared to handle this very intense sensation of birth instead of just opting for a surgery just simply because of the pain. And here is the last misconception we will tackle today. So many women, many parents-to-be, they approach hospital births really naively and believing that interventions are only used in case of complications. I have to admit that I also shared this thought prior to the birth of my first daughter. But unfortunately, in most parts of the world, in the Western world typically, birth is seen through an overly medical lens where the normal, healthy, physiological process is often treated as a problem, as a kind of risky business, and that routine interventions are applied to minimize those perceived risks. And then routine here, this means that something which is applicable for everyone regardless of the individual situation and the individual risk of those complications. And it is very important to know that hospital protocols, they can vary significantly between institutions, even within the same country or within the same state. And care providers claim that those protocols, those hospital protocols, they are in place to protect mothers and to protect the babies. But now please think over for a moment. If those protocols were truly effective in protecting the health of mothers and babies, then they would be much more standardized across the board. And it is just enough to think on the placement, for example, of a saline lock upon admission, or the artificial rupture of the membranes, and then the widespread application of Pitocin and birth induction. So to keep the story short, typically in the Western world, too many interventions are applied too early, and those are unfortunately not decreasing the risks of birth, but on the contrary. When they are overused, then they are increasing the risks, and they may even lead to a cesarean surgery. And this is not just in the US, but actually in many Western countries around the world. So being prepared and educated about childbirth is really essential to navigate successfully the medical system during birth and to help you to avoid interventions which do not have a real medical reason. And I hope debunking these misconceptions, debunking these myths, it has given you a better understanding of childbirth and the importance of being informed and being prepared. And remember, knowledge is power. And that is true for birth too, because knowledge empowers you to make informed and really conscious decisions. And you are now looking for a reliable source to prepare for your birth journey, then please look no further. Because check out my website, which is the www.ownyourbirth.com, where you will find different course bundles packed with evidence-based practical information to help you to shape your birth according to your values and your preferences. And don't forget to subscribe to my free workshop. You will find this also on my website, because I will give you on this workshop super practical, easy to implement tips to make your birth smoother and more enjoyable. So I hope to see you soon there. Bye bye!